Don't start a business, here's what to do instead. The dangerous myth of entrepreneurship. There is something that destroys more lives than poverty, and almost no one wants to talk about it. False hope. Not ordinary hope, but the kind wrapped in motivational language, inspirational quotes, and the glossy promise of entrepreneurship. For decades, people have been sold a seductive story. Quit your job, follow your passion, start a business, escape the system. It sounds brave, it sounds bold, it sounds like freedom. But for most people, it becomes a slow financial collapse that takes years to undo. What's rarely shown is what happens after the excitement fades, after the resignation letter is sent, after the savings account is drained, when the camera is off and the motivational music stops. Because starting a business is not just about courage, it's about probability. And probability is not on most people's side. Entrepreneurship has been romanticized into a moral virtue. If you don't take the leap, you're told you're playing it safe. If you stay employed, you're labeled fearful. If you fail, you're told you simply didn't want it badly enough. But markets don't care about passion. Bills don't accept motivation as payment. Rent doesn't wait for your vision to work. The truth is uncomfortable. Starting a business is not the most reliable path to wealth. In fact, for many, it's the fastest way to erase years of savings, stability, and peace of mind. Thousands of people leave steady income with good intentions and strong belief only to replace it with uncertainty, stress, and financial pressure they've never experienced before. They work longer hours for less money. They lose benefits, security, and time. They call it freedom, but it feels like survival. And the most dangerous part, this advice doesn't come from liars. It comes from survivors. The few who succeeded sincerely believe their path works for everyone. But survivorship bias hides the silent majority, the people who followed the same advice and paid the price quietly. This isn't an attack on ambition, it's a warning about illusions. Because courage without strategy is not bravery. It's risk disguised as inspiration. And if we don't separate the myth of entrepreneurship from the reality of wealth, too many people will keep confusing hope with a plan and paying for it with years of their lives. The decision that ruins years right now. Someone watching this is standing at the edge of a decision that could reshape the next 5 years of their life. They've done everything right. They've saved $30,000, maybe $40,000, maybe $50,000. They've sacrificed weekends, delayed vacations, said no while others said yes. And now, the internet is whispering no, shouting in their ear. Be your own boss. Escape the 9 to 5. Take the leap. It sounds logical. Even inevitable, after all. Why keep trading time for money when you could build something for yourself? But what no one explains is what happens after the leap when gravity takes over. The resignation letter feels empowering. The first few weeks feel electric. The idea feels alive. Everything seems possible. Then reality arrives quietly. There is no paycheck anymore. No benefits. No safety net. Every expense becomes louder. Rent, food, insurance. Unexpected costs you never noticed before suddenly matter. And the savings, the money meant to buy freedom, starts turning into fuel just to survive. What used to be working on your dream becomes anxiety disguised as productivity. Longer hours, more stress, less certainty. The most dangerous part isn't failure, it's slow failure. Month after month, the numbers don't quite work. Revenue comes in but not enough. Costs creep higher. The plan gets revised. Hope fills the gaps where profit should be. And because quitting now would mean admitting the decision was wrong, people double down. They invest more time, more money, more emotional energy. This is how a 1-year experiment quietly becomes a 5-year setback. Meanwhile, the life they left behind keeps moving forward without them. Former co-workers are promoted. Retirement accounts grow. Stability compounds. And the person who took the leap is stuck rebuilding what was once secure. This isn't a story about lacking courage. It's a story about misunderstanding risk. Motivational content celebrates bold decisions, not sustainable ones. It glorifies action, not outcomes. Because the truth is this, the riskiest move is not staying employed. The riskiest move is betting years of your future on untested assumptions. Before you take the leap, ask a better question. Not, can this work? But what happens if it doesn't? Because gravity doesn't care how inspired you felt on the way down. The numbers nobody promotes. Entrepreneurship is often marketed as a guaranteed upgrade to your life. More freedom, more money, more control. But the numbers tell a very different story, one that rarely makes it into motivational speeches or core sales pages. Here's what the data actually shows. Roughly 1 in 5 businesses fail within the first year, not because the founders were lazy or unintelligent, but because markets are unforgiving. Customers don't care how passionate you are. They only care whether your product solves a real problem at the right price. Within 5 years, half of all businesses are gone, cash runs out, costs rise, competition appears, mistakes compound, and by the 10-year mark, nearly 70% of businesses no longer exist. These are not opinions. These are long-term patterns observed across industries, countries, and economic cycles. But here's the part almost nobody talks about. Survival does not equal success. Many of the businesses that technically make it down T make their owners wealthy, or even comfortable. Instead, they create a new kind of trap. The owner works longer hours than before. There are no paid vacations, no sick days, no employer-funded retirement, no guaranteed income. Revenue comes in, but so do expenses. Marketing, software, contractors, taxes, repairs, emergencies. Every dollar earned has multiple hands waiting to claim it. When you calculate income per hour, many business owners earn less than they did in a stable job, while carrying significantly more stress and personal risk. Owning a business doesn't automatically mean freedom. Sometimes it just means owning a very demanding job with no benefits, no protections, and no off switch. And because society celebrates founders and hustle, many people stay trapped in unprofitable businesses longer than they should. Walking away feels like failure even when staying is clearly irrational. This is why the statistics matter. Not to scare people, but to bring clarity. Entrepreneurship isn't evil, it's just risky. And pretending otherwise is irresponsible. Before someone quits a stable income and commits their savings, they deserve to understand the odds, not just the success stories, but the full picture. Because bold decisions should be made with data, not dreams alone. And when you finally look at the numbers honestly, you'll realize something important. Starting a business isn't a shortcut to wealth. It's a high-risk strategy that only works under very specific conditions. Everything else is marketing. Why this keeps happening if starting a business fails so often? The obvious question is, why do so many intelligent, hardworking people keep walking into the same trap? The answer is simple and uncomfortable, because the advice comes from survivors. The voices people hear most often are on stages, podcasts, YouTube channels, and best-selling books. These are the individuals who succeeded. Their stories are real, their lessons feel convincing, and their confidence is contagious. But their experience is not representative of what happens to most people. This is known as survivorship bias. We focus on the winners because they're visible. The failures quietly disappear. There are no interviews with the businesses that shut down. No documentaries about the founders who lost their savings and went back to work. No viral clips about the companies that almost made it, and then didn't. The result is a distorted picture of reality. It's like studying aviation safety by only examining the planes that returned, while ignoring the wreckage that never came back. The data becomes dangerously incomplete. This bias creates a powerful illusion. If they did it, I can do it too. But what you're really seeing is the outcome of rare alignment, the right idea, at the right time, in the right market, with the right execution. That combination is uncommon, even among talented people. And here's the hardest truth to accept. Motivation didn't save the failed businesses. Hard work didn't save them. Belief didn't save them. Most founders who fail worked extremely hard. Many were deeply passionate. Many sacrificed sleep, relationships, and health. The market didn't care. Markets don't reward effort. They reward fit, timing, execution, and demand. You can have the best product in the world launched too early or too late, and still fail. You can work non-stop on a solution nobody actually wants. You can believe completely in an idea that simply doesn't scale or can't compete. None of this shows up in motivational content, because failure doesn't sell courses. Success does. So the cycle repeats. New people hear inspiring stories. They assume effort guarantees outcomes. They underestimate risk. They overestimate control. And when reality hits, they blame themselves, instead of recognizing that they were taught an incomplete model. Understanding survivorship bias doesn't mean ignoring success stories. It means placing them in context. Because real wisdom isn't copied from winners alone. It's built by studying outcomes, honestly, including the ones nobody wants to talk about. That's how intelligent decisions are made. What failure actually looks like. Most failed businesses don't collapse in a dramatic moment. They don't explode. They don't make headlines. They don't end with a single, obvious mistake. They fade. At the beginning, everything feels manageable. Costs seem reasonable. Revenue projections look achievable. There's excitement, momentum, and optimism. Small problems are dismissed as normal growing pains. Then reality starts to drift away from the plan. Expenses rise faster than expected. Software subscriptions, advertising costs, contractor fees, unexpected repairs. Each one feels small on its own, but together they slowly tighten the margin. Customers don't behave the way the spreadsheets predicted. They hesitate longer before buying. They ask for discounts. They leave without returning. Some never pay on time. Others demand more support than anticipated. Marketing, which was supposed to scale easily, becomes expensive and unpredictable. Ads stop converting. Organic reach disappears. Acquiring each new customer costs more than the last. None of this happens all at once. It happens gradually, just slow enough to keep hope alive. Founders respond by working harder. Longer hours, fewer breaks. Personal time disappears. Nights and weekends blend into weekdays. Stress builds quietly, then constantly. Sleep suffers. Health declines. Relationships strain. But walking away feels impossible. So the story becomes, next month will be better. After this launch, things will stabilize. Once we get a few more clients, it'll turn around. The hope replaces strategy. Month by month, savings shrink. Credit cards fill the gap. Retirement accounts are left untouched until they aren't. Every decision becomes reactive instead of deliberate. By the time the truth is unavoidable, the runway is gone. The business doesn't end with a bang. It ends with an email, a closed account, a quiet shutdown. What's left isn't just financial loss. It's exhaustion, lost time, damaged confidence, and the realization that years were spent chasing something that never became stable. This is why business failure hurts more than most people expect. It doesn't just cost money. It costs energy, health, relationships, and opportunity. And because failure fades instead of collapsing, many people stay trapped far longer than logic would recommend. Understanding this process isn't meant to discourage ambition. It's meant to replace fantasy with clarity. Because knowing what failure actually looks like allows people to recognize it earlier and make smarter decisions before the cost becomes irreversible. And that awareness alone can save years of someone's life. The boring strategy that actually works now comes the part of the conversation that rarely goes viral because it doesn't sell dreams, shortcuts, or courses. It sells results. The most reliable path to long-term wealth for the average person isn't dramatic. It doesn't require quitting your job, risking your savings, or betting on a single idea. It's built on 4 simple principles. Earn a steady income. Live below your means. Invest the difference consistently. Let time and compounding do the heavy lifting. That's it. This strategy works because it aligns with reality, not hope. A stable income creates predictability. Predictability allows planning. Planning allows consistent investing, and consistency is what turns ordinary earnings into long-term wealth. Living below your means creates margin. Margin creates flexibility. It reduces stress and prevents small problems from becoming financial disasters. Most people don't fail financially because they earn too little. They fail because they spend everything they earn. Investing the difference is where the transformation happens. When money is invested regularly into diversified assets such as broad market funds or established companies, it begins to compound. Each dollar earns returns, and those returns begin earning returns of their own. This process is slow at first, almost invisible. But over decades, it becomes powerful. Someone who invests consistently for 30 or 40 years often ends up wealthier than many small business owners without the volatility, sleepless nights, or personal risk that entrepreneurship demands. And unlike a business, investments don't demand your constant attention. They don't call you at midnight. They don't break down. They don't require marketing strategies or emergency fixes. They quietly work in the background. This approach doesn't depend on luck, viral success, or perfect timing. It depends on discipline, which is far more reliable. It also scales with life. As income grows, investments grow. As expenses stay controlled, freedom increases. As time passes, compounding accelerates. There's no moment where everything changes overnight. There's no dramatic breakthrough. Instead, there's something better: stability, optionality, and control. This strategy isn't boring because it lacks power. It's boring because it removes chaos. And in wealth building, removing chaos is often the smartest move a person can make. Because when you step back and look at the data, not the stories, the conclusion becomes clear. Slow, steady, and consistent beats risky, stressful, and uncertain far more often than anyone wants to admit. When starting a business does make sense despite everything you've heard so far. This isn't an argument against entrepreneurship. It's an argument against reckless entrepreneurship. There is a smart way to start a business, but it looks nothing like the version promoted online. No dramatic exits, no overnight success stories. No betting your entire future on untested ideas. Real entrepreneurship is careful, quiet, and calculated. The first rule is simple: keep your job. Stable income removes desperation. Desperation forces bad decisions, underpricing, accepting the wrong clients, cutting corners, and chasing short-term cash instead of long-term value. Keeping your job gives you time, clarity, and leverage. Second, test ideas with minimal money. Most failed businesses spend thousands building something before confirming anyone actually wants it. Smart founders reverse this. They test interest before investing, conversations before construction, pre-orders before inventory, pilot services before scaling. Third, validate demand before building. An idea is not a business. Demand is: if people won't pay for your solution now, they won't magically pay later. Validation means real customers, real money, and real feedback, not likes, compliments, or encouragement from friends. Fourth, risk only what you can afford to lose completely. Not rent money, not retirement savings, not borrowed funds. True experimentation uses capital that, if lost, wouldn't change your life. For many people, that number is small, and that's a feature, not a flaw. Constraints force discipline. Fifth, set clear exit rules. Most people fail slowly because they never decide what failure looks like. Before you begin, define measurable targets: revenue, growth, timelines. If those targets aren't met, you stop. This isn't pessimism. It's respect for your time and capital. Finally, choose low-cost, high-margin business models. Service businesses, consulting, freelancing, agencies, and expertise-based work allow you to start small, learn fast, and scale without massive upfront investment. Your primary input should be skill, not cash. This is how real entrepreneurs operate. They don't gamble their future. They run controlled experiments. They gather data, they adapt, and only when the business proves itself consistently do they commit fully. Entrepreneurship done this way isn't about courage or faith, it's about risk management. And when you treat business as a disciplined process instead of a dramatic leap, you dramatically increase the odds that it actually works without destroying everything else in the process. Already started and struggling. If you've already started a business and things aren't going the way you hoped, this part matters more than anything else. Because at this stage, honesty is your lifeline. Not optimism, not motivation, not blind persistence. Honesty. The first step is to look at the numbers, not the narrative you've been telling yourself. Revenue, expenses, cash flow, customer growth, conversion rates. These numbers are not opinions, they are signals. And ignoring them doesn't make them kind. A hope is emotional. Numbers are factual. If your business is losing money every month, if revenue is flat or shrinking, if customer acquisition costs exceed what those customers are worth, the business is not almost there, it's struggling. The second step is to set a clear deadline. Indefinite effort is how people lose years. Choose a specific time frame, 60 or 90 days, and commit to evaluating real progress at the end of it. Not effort, not hours worked. Results, during that window, fix what actually matters. Most businesses don't fail because of 10 small problems. They fail because of a few big ones. Pricing, target market, distribution, product market fit. Pick the 2 or 3 issues that, if solved, would materially change the outcome and focus only on those. If meaningful improvement doesn't happen by your deadline, the decision becomes clear. You don't try harder, you shut it down strategically. This is not quitting. This is capital preservation. Stability is not failure, it's recovery. Closing a business before it drains every dollar, every relationship, and every ounce of confidence is an act of intelligence, not weakness. It protects your future options. A failed business does not define you. What defines you is whether you respond to reality or deny it. Some of the most successful investors, professionals, and entrepreneurs walked away from ventures that weren't working. They didn't cling to sunk costs. They learned, stabilized, rebuilt, and moved forward with better judgment. The real danger isn't failure. The danger is staying in something that's clearly broken because your identity is attached to it. Clarity creates freedom. Stability creates momentum. And stepping back can sometimes be the fastest way forward. If you're struggling, know this: you're not alone, you're not behind, and you're not finished. You readjust at a decision point, and honest decisions are how people recover stronger than they started. The real difference between wealth and business, starting a business and building wealth, are often spoken about as if they're the same thing. They are not. A business is an activity. Wealth is a system. One requires constant decision-making, ongoing risk, and personal involvement. The other relies on probability, patience, and structures that continue working even when you step away. Wealth is not built by intensity, it's built by consistency. Most people confuse effort with outcome. They believe that working harder, taking bigger risks, or wanting it more increases the odds of success. But markets don't reward desire. They reward alignment between capital, time, and mathematical advantage. That's why wealth is rarely created in dramatic leaps. It grows quietly, predictably, and almost invisibly over long periods of time. Business ownership, on the other hand, concentrates risk. Your income depends on a single entity, a single market, and often a single set of assumptions. When those assumptions are wrong, then many or progress stalls or reverses. Wealth systems do the opposite. They spread risk, they compound gains, they reduce dependence on daily effort. This is why the smartest players don't chase odds bets with life-changing stakes. They understand that one lucky win is not a strategy, but favorable probability, repeated over time, is. Long-term investors don't need to predict the future. They only need to stay in the game long enough for averages to work in their favor. That's the power of math applied patiently. Compounding doesn't care about motivation. It doesn't respond to stress. It doesn't require inspiration. It simply works, as long as it's given time. This is why many quiet millionaires never started businesses at all. They built careers, controlled spending, invested consistently, and let decades do what no burst of effort ever could. Business can create wealth, but only under the right conditions. Wealth itself is created through systems that don't rely on constant heroics. The long game isn't exciting. It doesn't produce viral stories. It doesn't make headlines, but it wins. Every time you choose stability over speculation, probability over passion, and systems over impulses, you increase your odds, not dramatically, but reliably. And in wealth building, reliability beats brilliance. Because the goal isn't to gamble your future on a single idea. The goal is to design a life where time, math, and discipline work for you quietly, relentlessly, and in your favor. Final thought: there are no shortcuts. If wealth were fast, easy, or guaranteed, it wouldn't be rare. It would be ordinary. The reason financial independence feels distant for so many people, it's in T because the path is hidden, it's S because the path is slow, disciplined, and unglamorous. Real wealth is built deliberately. It begins with income you can rely on. It grows when spending is controlled, not optimized for appearance. And it compounds when investing becomes a habit, not a reaction to headlines or emotions. This process doesn't reward urgency, it rewards consistency. Most people lose because they rush. They look for acceleration instead of alignment. They chase breakthroughs while ignoring foundations. But wealth doesn't respond to intensity, it responds to time, structure, and patience. Move slowly, not because you lack ambition, but because you understand probability. Quiet progress beats loud promises. Steady systems beat dramatic decisions. And boring consistency outperforms clever shortcuts almost every time. The system we live in may not be fair. It doesn't reward everyone equally. It doesn't start us from the same place. But it is predictable, and predictability is power. When you understand how money flows, how compounding works, and how behavior shapes outcomes over decades, you stop reacting to fear and start making decisions with clarity. You stop chasing opportunities and start building position. You stop trading time for urgency and start owning it. Wealth isn't about speed, it's about direction. Choose a path you can stay on. Build systems that don't rely on motivation. Let time do the work. Most people try to rush. Because in the end, the people who win aren't the loudest, the fastest, or the boldest. They're the ones who understood the rules and played them patiently. If this message gave you clarity, not hype, if it helped you see money with a calmer, more rational lens, then support this channel by subscribing. This space exists to cut through noise, remove false promises, and focus on ideas that actually hold up over time. No shortcuts, no pressure. Just principles that work whether the market is booming or breaking. If you value clear thinking over loud motivation, you'll feel at home here. And remember, you don't need to outrun everyone. You don't need to get rich fast. You just need to stay consistent long enough for the math to work. Thanks for being here.